Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll go back to item number 2. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move into item 3, public comments. Nancy, are there any public comment cards?
There are not.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, consent calendar. Is there any item on the consent calendar that any member of the board wishes to pull from the consent calendar? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move the consent. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Move on to item 5A, illustrative regulatory updates, and we'll move into state and federal legislative update, and we'll start with our federal people in Washington.
Good evening. It's nice to see everyone. This will be a fairly brief report because since October 1st, the federal government has been shut down because of the budget impasse that started at the first of the fiscal year. Just on that, we are hearing that Senator Thune, the majority leader in the Senate, just today, this afternoon, said that he had a gut feeling that they were starting to make some movement on a deal to reopen the government. And there's some speculation that perhaps later this week or sometime next week, there may be some movement to reopen it. There's also some of the travel industry is starting to ramp up their concerns about the growing impacts of the shutdown on potential future travel plans and bookings at hotels and airlines. If you the last previous longest shutdown before the current record shutdown, what ended it was when TSA workers said they were not going to show up to work the next day if they didn't start getting paid. So the travel industry starting to ramp up pressure and issues could actually motivate some folks that haven't been motivated to date. Just on the shutdown, the impacts at different agencies that we, especially the ones we pay close attention to, there's some variation. We mentioned this briefly last month before the shutdown, or right after the first of the shutdown, but agencies like EPA are primarily on funding that expires at the end of each fiscal year. And so most of EPA, with some exceptions, has been shut down, and most of the workers that aren't, deemed emergency or significant for immediate threats to life and property have been furloughed. On the other hand, agencies like the Army Corps of Engineers and Bureau of Reclamation, those agencies, they largely are funded by appropriations that do not have a annual expiration date. And so as long as they have leftover appropriations, most of their workforce can keep going. But at some point, they'll run through the unexpended appropriations from last year, and then it will have a growing impact on them as we move forward. On other news, in addition to the shutdown and appropriations front, this in the last few weeks, the Interior Department named Scott Cameron the acting head of the Bureau of Reclamation. He was in as a political appointee in the Assistant Secretary's office before that, so he's a known person we've known from going back to the first Trump administration and beforehand. Finally, in the last couple of weeks, Senator Padilla expressed some conditional openness on PFAS to the exception, the legislation to accept passive receivers from liability under PFAS under CERCLA. So that was a good development because the Democrats, their base has been somewhat divided on that issue. So it's made it more difficult for us to get traction with Democrats coming out to support it. So with that, I'll pause and see if Mike or Chris would like to add anything.
Yeah, Lowry, I would just add one thing. In addition to the mention of Scott Cameron being named as the acting head of the Bureau of Reclamation, we had mentioned during the last meeting that there was a rules change in the United States Senate that was going to allow for the consideration of sort of packages of nominees for political positions within the administration. That rules change took effect, and as a result, we've seen an increase in pace in which the Senate has been increasing and confirming nominees. Some that have been done very recently that I just wanted to mention was Michael Boren for the USDA, Andrea Travnik, who is now the Assistant Secretary for Water and Science at the Department of the Interior, along with Scott Cameron. Those are two pivotal positions for Colorado River negotiations, a lot of operations decisions that are made out in the West, as well as a number of positions at EPA. So despite the shutdown, the United States Senate is still working to move business forward. And certainly once the government reopens, now that a lot of those political appointees are going to be in those senior level positions within the administration, we're hopeful that things will sort of start moving quickly. That was it for me, Larry.
Just one thing to add on my end, working with the legislative principles that you all have adopted at the beginning of each Congress and with your wonderful staff, we have been active in the last month on legislative advocacy letters, and the JPA has sent letters of support for the LIWAP, so Low Income Housing Water Assistance Program, the LIWAP Establishment Act. You might remember the LIWAP program. It was a COVID era program that expired last year. And there's been legislation introduced to reauthorize and reappropriate funds to that program. So we got really great feedback from this bill sponsor, Congressman Sorensen out of Illinois, as well as your delegation, Senators Padilla and Schiff, both sent favorable responses to us, as well as your House delegation and to the committee staff. The JPA also sent a support letter on the Golden Mussel Eradication and Control Act. Got really good feedback from the bill sponsor, Mr. Harder from Northern California, as well as your local delegation. And the highlight of them all, the Special District Grant Fairness and Accessibility Act. Your Congresswoman, Julia Brownlee, actually signed on to the bill as a result of your advocacy. So a good month all around in the LVT JPA legislative advocacy letters department.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And thanks, Mike. And I think now that's our federal report, and we can open it up to see if y'all have any questions.
Any questions? Len?
You haven't mentioned it, and I think in the past you've noticed that this should not have any impact on our WIFIA loans or any of the loans going through the EPA, or will it?
The main impact in the immediate is that the WIFIA office has almost entirely been furloughed during the shutdown. As I said, EPA has been majority impacted. And so, there was a slowdown with approvals of WIFIA loans. There's only been one approval since the Trump administration came into office. We were hearing they were starting to work through additional loans to get those ready to go. But with the office being closed for over a month now, there hasn't been any progress on WIPIA. So that's been the main impact, is just everything's been paused for the last month, unfortunately.
Does that mean can we still count on the money? Just have to wait longer? Is that what is the takeaway from this experience?
Yes, I think that we understood they were starting to make progress, and that there was a lot of questions from the higher ups and new political appointees in the Trump administration, but they were starting to make progress, and all of that paused with the shutdown. And so it's going to have to get started again, as soon as they reopen. So I don't think that it There have been no threats to the funding. I think it's really just been a new administration and the bureaucracy, but the shutdown, paused that even further. So it just added to the delay.
And anxiety. Thank you.
If I could add,
Yes, I agree. For all of us too.
if I could add that, yes, so with your programs more or less been paused because of staffing and furloughs. We've gotten word that probably by the end of the calendar year, we should get that closed. I will say too, we do have plans and we've had plans in place for some interim financing anyways. So we could afford to, for the WIFIA loan to take a little bit longer to close if need. So as far as the Pure Water project, we're not really concerned about funding at this point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Lowry, thanks for your report, and we'll see you guys next month.
That's good. Thank you.
All right, and Cyrus, you're up.
Good evening, board members and guests. My report will be equally short because, of course, the legislature is out of session and the governor is focused on opposing the Trump administration and the election tomorrow. So a lot of his discretionary staff has been tasked with working on that. You may have been getting countless text messages and emails on that topic on your phone, and that kind of tells you what they're working on. So what is going on, though, are things that don't directly impact the district. However, that doesn't mean there aren't really big things going on kind of out in the water world, things that I feel I should inform you about because like they'll probably be talked about at Aqua, next month, and they're just big issues. One is new notification levels on PFAS, and some of the other, I don't know all the letters, PFOA, P multiple letters, XS, all those. So Department of Drinking Water came out with some new notification levels, and some of those notification levels are dramatically lower. Some aren't so much, but just heads up, that's kind of happening out there, and it's probably going to generate a lot of talk. The other big news is kind of almost bombshell equivalent, but it affects Sigma, which of course, again, it doesn't hit the district, but this is going to be huge. Sigma was really kind of written to deal with the subsidence in Central Valley and overpumping of groundwater. Well, there was litigation. There's an injunction against the State Water Resources Control Board on their enforcement. Well, that got resolved on Friday, resoundingly in favor of the state. So the appeals court basically said, State Board, yeah, everything you said spot on, and you have all the authority you claim you do. And in fact, the particular legal motion is devastating. Basically, the appeals court said to the lower court, reverse your decision and grant a thing called a demurrer, which basically says the Kings County that brought the lawsuit, basically they have zero case. They have no case whatsoever, even if everything you say is true. So it's a resounding win for the state. They can begin enforcement immediately, and in fact, they did. They are resuming enforcements in the Tule River areas. So this is going to affect, a pretty big swath of California, and you're going to be hearing about it, and it's going to lead to a lot of drama. Other than that, I have updated results from the legislation that we didn't have at the last board meeting. We now have all the final results in. Absolutely no surprises this year. It was a perfectly average year. The number of bills we got introduced and signed were spot on with the previous years. All the bills we kind of expected to get signed did get signed. Even one we kind of hoping wouldn't get signed got signed too. So zero surprises, and I guess in the long analysis, that's good. Final point, we've got a preview of what Aqua will be looking at, and sure enough, they will be again looking at low-income rate assistance and wildfire response. So could be a couple of relevant topics, to the district. And I'll be there, and I will be following up with a report, in the next month. And of course, I'll be seeing you all at Aqua. Okay, that concludes all of the items I had on my agenda.
Okay, any questions from the board? Len?
Cyrus, the law wrapped around AB 259, I don't quite understand reading your summary. Will if somebody needs to be out of the country for a couple of months, what is the relationship? Can they still maintain their position and attend meetings for 2 months by Zoom? I've read this thing twice and I don't quite understand what you said.
AB 259, I don't have it right in front of you, but that doesn't sound familiar. In terms of the meetings, the bill was SB 707. I mentioned another bill that was introduced, but it didn't, it was halted in favor of SB 707. Is that what you're referring to?
Let's see, SB 770.
707, I believe. Here, I'm calling up, I called your attention to,
Yes, you're right.
yeah, open meetings, right. Yeah, so at the end of the day, you got what you guys needed, which was an extension removal of the sunset. That's the only thing that's pertinent to you. So all the rules you've been operating under will continue. For larger districts who meet the targets within that bill, oh my gosh, they're headed for a lot of changes. It's quite a dramatic impact. But you guys are well below the threshold, so your takeaway is business as usual for you guys.
Okay, that's good to hear. It's a very useful tool to be able to continue to use when we have board members who just can't be here.
Oh, and I forgot, I'll actually be seeing you guys on December 1st before Aqua. So I'll get to see you guys again.
Okay, any other questions for Cyrus? Okay.
All right,
Seeing
good
none,
evening.
Cyrus, thanks very much for your report. We'll
Always
see.
a pleasure.
We'll
see you
see all
soon.
sorts of times next month. Yes. Take care now. Okay, we'll move on to action items. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll move on to item 5B, Pure Water Project, Las Virgenes Triunfo, and Oliver, your report.
Good evening, directors. Good to be with you tonight. I will be sharing our October update for the Pure Water Project. And pardon me for just a moment as I pull that up. So it's been a very busy month for us. Some of the things I wanted to highlight are, and apologize, did not pull it up right, but we've been continuing negotiations for the guaranteed maximum price with the Walsh team. They've been very positive. I actually have a presentation for you all tonight, kind of going back over some of the stuff we covered a few months ago about the GMP negotiation process and what you're going to see in December. We are still on track to bring the guaranteed maximum price before the board in the, I believe it's December 8th meeting. But the negotiations have gone very well. We've done three separate workshops, a fourth workshop just to go over legal terms, and we're finalizing those negotiations now. Pardon me, computer doesn't want to play nice. I also wanted to update, we commenced oak tree removals at the Advanced Water Purification Facility site. That went very well. There are about 7 trees that still remain that will eventually be removed, but we're working with CDFW and the regional board in order to get the authorization to remove those final trees. But we received no complaints from the community or from the city of Agoura Hills. Walsh Construction actually managed to finish up a couple days early as well. So it was all very, very positive. I also wanted to mention.
Oliver, one second. How many were removed and where were they placed?
They were torn down. So I actually went out there to see if there was any material that could be repurposed in some way. And actually most of these trees, pretty much all of them, when you cut them down, they're pretty much hollow inside. So they were pushed down, no roots removed or ground disturbed. We just removed effectively the trunk and the canopy so that as it is the environmentally sensitive time of year to do that right now. We also had biologists go out and ensure that there was no bird nesting or bat roosting prior to those removals. But the trees were disposed of through Walsh. There was no real opportunity to reuse any of that material. Also wanted to update you, JPA, Jacobs, Flow Science, and Scripps Institute of Oceanography met with the National Water Research Institute Independent Advisory Panel. So this was a meeting to go over the results of our model calibration, the tracer study that we performed. And so the data from that tracer study has now been used to calibrate our reservoir model. And we were going over the results of that with the independent advisory panel, looking for their buy-off to continue into scenario development and scenario analysis with the model. So we wanted to be sure that the calibration met their standards and that everything had been addressed properly. We're looking forward to their report in about 4 to 6 weeks. But based on the meeting that we had, it was all very positive comments. So we're looking forward to seeing their conclusion on that. And with that,
what was the purpose of that?
so we did a dye tracer test in the reservoir that was earlier this year. And then we used underwater drones, cast sampling, collected a lot of data of that tracer as it traveled from where it was dropped off towards the reservoir. So by that then feeds into the model so that we're able to model different scenarios of the reservoir operations once pure water is running. So it tells us how much dilution we get, how much mixing we're getting, but we're also able to use the model to say if the reservoir level was less than what it is, what kind of mixing would we get? So all of this will eventually feed into the permitting of the pure water project.
Thank you.
Yep. Looking forward to this month. As I said, we're looking to finalize negotiations this week or next. We'll be working on a board report as quickly as possible so that you all are able to review where we ended up with the guaranteed maximum price and hoping to have that approved in December. So that's really our main activity right now. But of course, design on the ancillary pipelines, on the AWPF itself, and the reverse osmosis concentrate pipeline, those are all progressing during these negotiations, which was the purpose of one of the change orders that you approved earlier to keep that design moving while we're in this negotiation. With that, I'd be happy to share the presentation about the guaranteed maximum price if there's no questions about what I covered. All right. If I'm able to. Yeah, it's not letting me get to the top. Let me stop sharing for a second. Start with it. Apologies. Still getting used to this.
So this is a very much abbreviated version of what was shared with the board. I don't know, it's been at least 4 months or so.
Yeah, 3 or 4 months.
We felt that given the time constraints for the project and needing to move forward, GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, it's could be a fairly complicated subject item, and we just wanted to refresh the board's memory before the meeting on the 8th. That way we could use up most of that meeting, just to kind of go over more details on the GMP rather than all the theory behind GMP.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so apologies if some of these are a little bit repetitive. We tried to shorten those up, and there's a little more new information. I also, at the end of it, have some new renderings, architectural renderings as requested in the last meeting, and can answer some of the questions from that. But I'll pause after we talk about GMP, and then I can share those renderings. So as a reminder, progressive design build, it's a new procurement method. This is the Pure Water project is the only project that we've used this type of method of progressive design build. It allows us to have an accelerated schedule. It increases the collaboration that we have with both the designer and the contractor. It mitigates a lot of risk for the district, especially with a project of this size, and it leverages our outside resources. So just a reminder where we're at in the process. The procurement was the multi-year process of bringing the Walsh team on and selecting them from the 7 firms that applied. The last 2 years have been the design phase 1, so progressing the design from 0 to 60%. And then the guaranteed maximum price is what initiates phase 2, which is the final design and construction of the project. So what is a guaranteed maximum price? It's the contractual cap on the total price for the final design and construction of the project. And it's typical to have that established at 60% design. It's enough of a design progression that the contractor is able to price the project, but also takes advantage of that accelerated format. So how the guaranteed maximum price is built. Cost estimating, and so there's cost estimating of the project throughout phase 1, and then pricing by the progressive design build team. So they gather up direct construction costs, general conditions, contingency, overhead, their profit. They put all this together and present it to us as their draft guaranteed maximum price. And then we spend about 2 months negotiating to where we are today. So our review includes independent cost estimates. So this is where Jacobs as our owner advisor comes in, value engineering, and risk assessment. So value engineering, we look for ways that we can accomplish the same goal and for less cost. So it's very important in that guaranteed maximum price, we get all those details. And then risk assessment, part of the guaranteed maximum price is contingency and allowance, which I'll talk about in just a second. But depending on who takes that risk, we have the ability to affect price if there's risks that we as the owner are willing to take on. So open book, this refers to how the first phase has been run. It's a transparent, collaborative approach to cost estimation. So essentially, we get to see everything that builds into their cost. When they give us a guaranteed maximum price, we see all the equipment that they're going to buy. We see any subcontractors, and for this project, there was so far 62 62 procurements that the Walsh team went through. So we get to see all of those bids, not just who they recommend as the best value selection, but all the bids that came in, and we get to work with Walsh to make sure that they're selecting folks that we believe are the best fit for the project and add the best value. Is this me? Okay. This open book process really gives us the ability to negotiate to a final price, because we're seeing what goes into the price, and we have Jacobs as our owner advisor who is able to help us truth check all of that, all of their assumptions. So the elements of the GMP, again, this is a lot of the stuff that we covered about 3 or 4 months ago, so I'll run through it relatively quickly, but please let me know if you want me to go into more detail. But the main thing are the direct costs. It's the cost to complete the construction, materials, labor, equipment. The general conditions, so these are project-related costs such as job site trailer, safety equipment, temporary utilities. There's markup. So on this project, we competitively bid that markup. During the procurement phase, we asked all 3 proposers who put in a proposal to list what their contractor markup would be, and they were all within 1%. So it's a very competitive rate, and one that we locked in 2 years ago. I think you'll find in the market today that profit is actually higher today than it was when we were able to lock it in. Escalation. So I know we talk a lot about escalation, especially the last few years. It's an allowance for future increases. This is really kind of built into the price. It's built into some of the prices, but it's also accounted for in the risk register. So the contingency and the allowances. Now contingency. I did just want to highlight that in a lump sum model, and I'll talk a little bit more about lump sum in a slide or two. But in a lump sum model, we negotiate the contingency with the contractor during these negotiations. But if we were to go to lump sum, it then just becomes part of the overall price. So basically, their draft guaranteed maximum price has a contingency number in it. We then negotiate that down, and so the JPA sees the savings up front. And then once we go to a lump sum model, that then just gets folded into the price, and it's on Walsh to manage all those risks. If the risks that they identified end up costing more, it comes out of their pocket. If it ends up costing less, they get the savings for it. But we end up seeing the savings by negotiating that down during the GMP negotiations. So allowances also cover risk, but this is our money to manage risk. So this is usually risk that we, as the owner, have more ability to control, or it's something that could happen and we pay as it happens. So a good example is rock excavation. It costs more money to excavate hard rock in this area, but we don't know exactly how much they're going to encounter. So we set aside a budget for it. And as the contractor installs the pipeline, they have to verify with us all the rock that they hit, how much it was, and there's a set cost for that, and then we release that from our allowance bucket. But allowances are what I'll be managing as the program manager, and the goal is to mitigate as much of that risk as possible and to not spend as much of that allowance as possible, but there are many things in there that will happen. We just try to mitigate how much it is, and we verify it before we pay for it. And then assumptions and exclusions. These are non-cost items that really define what the contract is, what they're responsible for, what we're responsible for, what they're assuming, what they're excluding from their scope. This is all just listed out very detailed in the guaranteed maximum price so that we can review them. And we're in the process right now of going back and forth and making some changes to those. They're non-cost items, but they do have an effect on cost. If, for example, owner is responsible for permit fees, if we were to say we want the contractor to be responsible for permit fees, that would increase the cost of the GMP. So non-cost items may not be fully accurate. They do ultimately affect cost, but that is part of what we negotiate during the guaranteed maximum price. So I talked a little bit about the negotiation process. As I mentioned, open book pricing, independent validation of that pricing through ourselves and Jacobs, and a collaborative process. We've met multiple times. There's a lot of back and forth. I mean, we're getting down to each line item to make sure that we're all in agreement with that final price. And then risk management. Talked a little bit about this, but yeah, the part of the process of negotiation is figuring out who's best to carry that risk and whether it should be ours to control in an allowance or theirs to control in contingency. So I talked earlier about lump sum. I did just want to highlight lump sum because it is a majority of these projects end up going lump sum for phase 2. So in phase 1, there was a lot of reporting that the contractor needed to do in order to validate the work that they were doing, make sure that we're tracking costs, that we're staying within budget for the phase 1. In phase 2, we look at converting to a lump sum model because it has the opportunity to save the district tens of millions of dollars usually. So that is part of the negotiations right now that we're talking about with Walsh. And it's very likely that that would be one of the tools that we use to control the overall guaranteed maximum price. Lump sum is a greater risk to the contractor and a lower price for the owner because essentially they own all that risk. It's their project to deliver under a lump sum model. And as I mentioned before, contingency is negotiated up front and the owner sees that savings before the contract is finalized. So, but the flip side of that coin is that means once it's put into the project, any savings that Walsh is able to find by mitigating that risk is to their benefit. We talked about this last time as well, but change orders after GMP, progressive design build does still have change orders, but it's for a much smaller set of conditions than a traditional design bid build. So change orders are allowed for unforeseen conditions, owner-directed changes. If we were to say add 2 MGD to the processes, that we would obviously need to pay for that. And then force majeure events outside of our control. But it cannot be used for mistakes in pricing. So the pricing that Walsh has put together, we're negotiating, and we're going to agree upon, they have to stick by that. If they misprice something, it's theirs to make up. So the next steps, guaranteed maximum price, we're calling it 1-2. I'm not sure if you remember, we had like a smaller early work package that ended up not needing to be done early. So it got moved in, so that's why we're calling it 1 and 2. But GMP 1-2 addresses the advanced water purification facility and the majority of the ROC pipeline. The only part of the ROC pipeline it doesn't include is where there's a shared alignment with the ancillary pipelines. That will be included in guaranteed maximum price 3, which is expected late next year. We received the draft of this guaranteed maximum price in September. We held 3 workshops to discuss cost, one to discuss legal terms. The final guaranteed maximum price will be presented to you December 8th. And then staff has been able to negotiate a significant price reduction from their original draft proposal. Next is the rendering, so I'll stop there and happy to take any questions that you might have on the guaranteed maximum price.
Any questions?
So on the allowances, and how are allowances viewed? I mean, I anticipate a lot of rock, a lot of problems with the rock that it was being an exhaustive survey to locate all the rock. You're not going to do that. Doesn't make sense. So how do you handle the allowances for rock?
So for rock specifically, there would be a verification process. So there would be, as they're installing the pipeline, if they hit rock, there would be tickets for the equipment the special equipment that they would need to use to break up that rock. We would have an inspector in the field verifying that work is happening, and then they submit a ticket for that extra cost, and we release it from allowances.
So it's not part of the GMP because it's an allowance, which means, okay, you guys, you hit far more rock than we anticipated.
Right.
And then groundwater could also be a similar headache.
That's another risk. So overall, our allowances are developed by identifying all the risks that we're going to control through our allowances. And so rock, I don't have the exact numbers in front of it. Let's say we're assuming $2 million extra for rock excavation. But we also have we have 30 other risks in there, or 30 other items in our allowance bucket that are also identified. And the cumulative cost of the allowance bucket is probably somewhere around 14 million. So if we go over on something like rock, the hope is that we'll go under on somewhere else, and it'll balance out. So we're not held to the exact number that we estimated in the risk register for rock. We have a full bucket to use, and that allowance bucket, or the amount in the allowance, I think roughly around 14 million, that will be presented with the GMP, but it does not become part of Walsh's contract. It's money that you authorize for us to manage the project, and we release to them as needed, or as those risks occur.
As those
Right, but
issues occur.
Right, but it's our money that we control, so it only gets paid to them when the thing happens. It doesn't go in.
If we don't use it all up, we get money back. If we end up underestimating, then we have to put more money into it.
Okay, but it's held aside from the profit line then. Well, they get 10% on the allowance?
There would still, so when they go and do rock, they still have to manage that work, and they still have a profit on it. So the cost that we would pay for rock would include their profit margin.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Clarifying that.
Oliver, so I have 2 recent data points of just how expensive things have gotten in construction. And I'm just wondering, if you have a feel for this at all. I mean, the people I'm talking to that are rebuilding, or getting estimates to rebuild their homes after the Palisades fire. I mean, 2 years ago, $600 to $800 a foot. I'm hearing now $1,000 to $1,200 or maybe more, with finishes is what they're being quoted. And then this morning I was on a call where they're doing remodels of fast food restaurants, and a year ago it was $400,000 to do a complete remodel of a Burger King. Today it's $800,000 for the same exact job. So I don't know, do you have a feel for what we're up against, or are we getting ahead of the?
Well, it's really it's one of the benefits of how this project is being delivered. When I bring that price to you on December 8th, they are committing to that price to build the project. So they need to deliver that regardless of what happens with prices. They have some money in contingencies to cover things like escalation in the market or supply chain disruptions. So there are some accommodations for that. But we are locking in a price for this portion of the work.
It all accounts for any of that inflation.
I'm just worried that the price we thought it was going to be 2 years ago is going to be significantly higher.
Well, let's put it, you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so we're not ready to give an exact number, but I can say that we've been doing cost estimating from the beginning of when Walsh came on, and even before with Jacobs. But when Walsh one of their first tasks was to do a cost estimate based on the conceptual design report. We've seen the price that we have today, 2 years later, is still in keeping with that price. It's going to be less than it. So that's really good news. The things like locking in the profit margin at 10%. Yeah, just in general, we have a price that allows us to stay within our $466 million budget. With the caveat that we don't have all the prices yet. Again, it's going to be a year until we see the price for the ancillary pipeline. But as it stands today, we do feel like we're able to stay within that 466.
And isn't it progressive design build that brackets these types of major changes, inflation changes? Isn't that why we're using the model, progressive design build, rather than a plan? And how much does it cost to build it?
It's certainly one of the benefits. If we had done this traditional design bid build, we'd be at 60% design, which means there would probably be another 6 months till we had 100% final design, just on these elements. And then we would have had to go through a 3 to 4 month procurement, or send it out to bid, get bids, and take the low bid. So we would be a year behind in getting a price for this from the market.
Right. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of models to use, but this was the right model to use for what we're building.
100%.
Any other questions for Oliver? Okay, let's move on to the next part then.
Perfect. And I'll end with this. I know I shared some architectural renderings at our last meeting. There were some comments about those renderings. So they've updated this a bit. They've turned the equipment inside the building blue. They've added some of those trees. You can actually see how that transformer structure on the left is shielded from view. It was a lot more prominent in the last one, but they hadn't added the fencing or a lot of the landscaping yet. So I think this is a little more accurate depiction of what it'll ultimately look like.
You're gonna put in a tree that big?
I mean, eventually it'll get that big.
Eventually.
Right.
And
May
you're also.
may not start that big.
You're about 100 feet back from the building, so you can see the whole thing overall, and you're not up close to where the thing is 35 or 40 feet tall,
Right.
which is what it is.
Well, and one of the comments from last time was that it didn't seem like the elevation of the building was being reflected properly. I did talk.
I'm still not happy with it. All right?
Understand.
And I told the general manager today, what are you doing? This is across the street and way back, and that thing is 3 feet, 4 feet up from the road, and it's 25 feet high. So the thing is 30 feet high. You don't get that. Looks like a house to me. And I know it's not.
Well, I will say we checked with the design team because I was a little bit confused as well. After last time, I thought it was elevated even more from the road. During the design progression, one of the things that Walsh was able to do was decrease that elevation from the road. So from this angle, you're, I think, only about 4 to 5 feet up from the grade of the sidewalk. So it's not as perched or as prominent as earlier designs of it were. They were able to lower the pad.
But still, it's
elevation.
still 30 feet tall. It's going to be 30, 35 feet. And if you're standing on the sidewalk next to the building, it's a tower. It's a huge building.
We'll try and find some big trees.
I think trees aren't the only answer. I have some other ideas.
Okay. But I did just want.
Move on.
As I said, I just wanted to be responsive to the request last time, and they have done some updates to these renderings. Again, the equipment now shown in blue instead of red, which is, again, we have choices as to how that's painted, but I think blue is probably a more likely choice than red with those see-through windows. And then this is from this is looking to the southeast towards the building. This would be the entrance into the building. I do believe that this view, we're still missing the security fencing. So there would be some fencing here and an entry gate, but they have added more of the landscaping to the rendering. So those are the 3 renderings that I have. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Can you go back to the central one? I have a whole bunch of comments.
Okay.
We go back. Okay. So this thing, I want everybody to realize this thing is 330 feet long and it's 30 feet, it's 25 to 30 feet tall. And if you look at it, you'll see we have some high volumes on the east end and the west end. I propose, or I suggest, that we consider a metaphor, because we never got one from the architect, a metaphor that we think this building is a bridge to the future. And the reason I say that is that we have this vertical element, which is shown in white on the east side, and we also have fairly tall vertical element shown on the west side. It would make sense to me, and I hope to the rest of the board, to look at this thing from that perspective, that this thing can have some character. And also this rendering is not an honest rendering. I disagree, sir. I don't like it. I'm 25 feet back from the road where the viewpoint is, so it shows the whole building. If I was standing on the sidewalk, I have a trouble seeing the whole building. The perspective would be fisheye.
Sure, and the direction that we gave the design team was to give a viewing from the road as the driver would see it, so that's why they placed it there. We do have,
And a driver wouldn't see it from that perspective. That's too far back.
Joe?
Yeah, so I just want to remind the board that on January 6th of this year, the board did accept the architecture as is. Certainly, if the board changes their mind and wants to revisit again, we could do that with delay and cost. Also, the architect is basically exhausted their budget. So if we asked them to come back with more renderings or make changes, we would have to come back with a change order.
So it boils down to whether or not the board wants to do it. It's a small cost for a huge impact. And since we're discussing millions and millions of dollars, I don't believe it's in that, but in that realm. So for us to say that it's too costly is, I think, an incorrect statement. I was hoping that some of the other members of the board would see it my way, and I love the idea. I'm supporting the idea of making it a metaphor, as if a bridge to the future. Somehow we could work it in where it's on the skin. Something to bring, and it would also break down the massing. This thing is huge, and this is a dishonest rendering for what we need. Doesn't show the, if I was walking there, I could see how high the building was. There's no human being shown there either.
I could certainly get a rendering that adds a human being. I would just add to what, I agree with everything that Joe said, and I would add to it, though, the cost of the architect may not be a lot in relation to the project. The impacts to schedule, the fact, as we just talked about, the benefits of locking in a price in December rather than next year, there would be significant impacts to schedule and our ability to lock down a price.
My contention that if we just do things on the surface, we can make it a very minimal cost and we have a huge impact and look. And I realize I can't change the massing of the building, but I can change the skin. I'm not talking $5 million. I'm talking less than $1 million. And I'm not talking a lot of money from the design point of view. It will take some design work.
If there's any specific requests, I would be happy to discuss it with the design team and see what the impact to cost and schedule would be. If they're ones that don't affect the overall layout of the building, the shape of the building, it is possible that they might be able to be incorporated. But the overall architecture, as Joe said, is pretty locked, and any changes to the building itself has the potential. I mean, one of the things to keep in mind, I think, is that we did do our best to keep the building size as economical as possible while still leaving some flexibility for future expansion. But because of that, everything is kind of locked into place. So any changes to the overall building plan has higher potential to have knock-on effects to equipment being able to fit in the right place, operator access inside the building.
I'm talking skin. I'm not talking guts.
Sure. As I said, any specific requests you had, I'd be happy to take
Well, as I
that.
mentioned, I'd like the metaphor. Since nobody's proposed a metaphor to this point, the architects haven't, nobody from the staff has, nor from this board. I'm proposing that we adopt a metaphor of a bridge to the future, which it is.
Well, Len, do you
Yes, sir.
have a specific idea in mind that
I-
what your metaphor would be? And maybe that's something that you should present to the board.
All right.
Because right now you're presenting an idea, but not something
No,
specific.
I've never presented an idea before because I was looking on, hoping that somebody would come up with an idea or a metaphor. Nobody has. So I decided to do it myself. I kept thinking, it's been a 2-year process to come up with a metaphor. It's not, they just don't fall out of the sky.
So I understand the metaphor. I guess I just don't understand how to translate that into a request to the architect.
That's fine.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Relevant.
I actually have one other thought on this thing. I think that fear is ruling our thoughts and our feelings. I think you have to look past that and you have to say, look, this thing is going to be here for the next 100 years at least. And we have to make drinking water out of it. And why don't we do that and have some sort of a metaphor? That's mine. That I'm not promoting it as the only metaphor. I'm saying it's one I came up with. Somebody comes up with a better idea, love it. Nobody has. It's been a struggle to get to this thing.
I understand.
Okay, thank you, Oliver.
Thank you.
Before I move on, I noticed that Director Lewitt is on the Zoom call. Jay, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys and I'm listening in. But,
Okay, are you intending to be in a voting position or
no,
are you just observing tonight?
no,
That's not-
I didn't post any notice. So I'm just listening in as just a listening mode.
Okay, that's fine. We will
Thank
remain
you.
as is. Okay, we'll move on to action items. Item 6A, the proposed 2026 JPA Board Meeting calendar. Nancy, will you present that?
Good evening, Board of Directors. At each of your seats, I've put this calendar up for you. I'm here to present the proposed 2026 JPA Board Meeting calendar. The JPA Board regularly meets on the first Monday of each month. Since the initial distribution of the agenda, the Met calendar has come out. So I have circled in black the dates that may have conflicts and indicated in blue the Met meeting dates. For April 6th, we may have a conflict with Passover and the CSDA legislative days if the attendees plan to travel the day before the conference. On May 4th, there may be a conflict with the Aqua Spring Conference if attendees plan to travel the day before. On August the 3rd, there may be a conflict with the CASA Annual Conference if attendees plan to travel the day before. September 7th falls on a Labor Day, and December 7th, there may be a conflict with Hanukkah. So I am seeking direction from the board on preferred options.
So I'd suggest maybe we start with, I think it's May, is it May? No, I'm sorry, April. And I think the recommendation was. Okay. So the recommendation for April, we could move it to the 13th. There is a conflict with one of our board members, Director Lewitt, with a Met meeting. The other option is to move it to the Monday, the 20th. And of course, open to other suggestions that the board might have.
Are we moving it for Passover? Because I don't think that's necessary. I can't really speak to this if anybody's affected by the CSDA. But it's well beyond the first few days of Passover, so
Okay.
it wouldn't, for me personally, I can only speak for me, it wouldn't be an issue.
And I'm just asking any members of the board who are Jewish if they would be participating in the second night of Passover, which might make a difference. Does it make any difference to any of it? I think we can leave the meeting date as it is.
Okay.
The 6th stage.
So we would keep it on the 6th, Monday.
Correct.
And May 4th, if anyone is going to the spring conference and traveling the day before. That could be a conflict, or we could keep May 4th as is.
I can tell you for me, I would not be able to make May 4th.
Okay.
Not having anything to do with the Aqua, but I have another issue.
Okay.
So options here, we could do May 11th, the following Monday. Again, that's in conflict with, for one of our board members, Director Lewitt, for MWD. Open to others' ideas or suggestions for that.
That's also a Met. You do the 18th?
Oh, 18th works, no problem.
How many board members would have a problem with it being left on the 4th?
What was that, James?
Who would have a problem with it being left on the 4th?
None at all.
Yeah, as far as Aqua
It'd be
Conference.
just me. I don't know about Aqua.
It's mostly if you attend the committees that take place on the Monday before the
I don't know.
conference kicks off.
Does Region 8 meet on Monday?
And I know there's probably 2 board members where that could be a conflict.
Is the welcoming conference on Monday, the 4th, or on Tuesday, the 5th? I don't know myself.
Usually that's the morning of the Tuesdays.
I believe it's the 5th.
Yeah.
It's the night of the 5th is when the welcoming conference would be then. Okay, whatever.
We'll
I
keep
say
it.
leave it on the 4th.
Okay. And August 3rd could conflict with the CASA conference. Again, this is the same sort of, if they're going to travel the day before, options are the 10th, or you can keep it on the 3rd.
Pretty much the same,
I say.
same situation as Rocker.
Does anyone know where
What's
Cass
the-
it?
I've been told by the flight attendants, as soon as the last one.
Does anyone know where? Oh, Napa.
Jay, were you asking a question? Because you were very blur, you were distorted. Yes.
Oh, thank you, but I'm just in a listening mode only.
Okay.
So is the 10th better in August?
Well, I don't think there's any conflicts on the 10th, and some people may want to be traveling if they're going up to Napa. They might want to go the day before. Make it the 10th?
That works.
Okay,
Okay.
let's make it the 10th.
September 7th is Labor Day.
I don't think anybody wants to keep it on Labor Day.
Yeah.
The 8th?
Did we move it to Tuesday this year?
We can move to the next day, yeah, to a
Yeah,
Tuesday.
I think if we make it on Tuesday, that shouldn't pose a problem for anyone.
Except that means we have two, I didn't particularly like it. We have the LV meeting in the morning and then this in the.
The LV meeting would be the week prior and the week after.
Sorry, I'm not
that.
looking at the right.
I'll also miss Nancy. I'm going to miss that meeting. I'm going to be in Ireland, so I will not be.
We'll let you attend remotely, maybe.
So
We'll let you attend remotely.
Send you a link.
I have a tea time.
Or you don't want to be up at 3 a.m.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
And then we're looking at December then?
Yes, and so that may conflict with Hanukkah or a Met meeting, but that's up to you all.
Yeah.
Is there any problem with making it on the 9th, on a Wednesday? And we've had special meetings on, middle of the week, and I don't think it's a problem for people.
I don't know. What does that get you going from Monday to Wednesday?
There is,
Well, it's just that there's a conflict with Met, that's all.
there's
With
Met
Matt.
7th and 8th, so moving to Wednesday might
Wednesday,
ideal.
people will be at a conference in Las Vegas, so
Okay.
at Crua. It starts on the 9th.
14th.
Do the 14th?
What was decided?
14th?
Yeah, we could do the
Yeah.
14th.
Okay,
Okay,
yep.
and that,
I think we did it.
that's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
Okay, relatively painless.
thank you.
Okay, so, with that in mind, is there a motion to approve the calendar as discussed?
Also move.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of the amended calendar, say aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to action item number 6B, Rancho Las Virgenes spray field operation and maintenance. Craig, would you do the presentation?
Thank you, President Shapiro. Honorable board members, good to be before you tonight. This again is agenda item number 6B before the board tonight, the Rancho Las Virgenes Farm Spray Fields Operation and Maintenance Contract Award. A little bit of background. So since the 1970s, the district has utilized contractors to assist the district in providing operation and maintenance services to operate the spray fields at Rancho. This is the Title 22 recycled water effluent disposal services, specifically for the discharge permit for the Tapia Water Reclamation Facility. And most of this work is agricultural in nature and requires expertise and familiarity with agricultural operations. The services include, but not limited to, management of the irrigation system for the spray fields, maintenance of roughly 48 catch basins to prevent offsite runoff, general upkeep of the facility, tree removal, weed abatement services at other JPA facilities as needed, and also planting and harvesting of crops for nutrient removal, which is legacy-wise been required by Part 503 of the EPA biosolids rule. So just a little bit of contractual timeline. The W. Litton Land Preparation INC provided the district with services for roughly over 50 years. And in the fall of 24, following Litton's sudden contract termination, staff approached Brightview Landscape Services Incorporated to consider a contract amendment to include operations and maintenance of the spray fields to the existing landscape maintenance and brush management contract that we have with Brightview. And amendment number 1 was administratively approved on November 12th, 2024 to address the inclusion of the spray fields operation for a 30-day period. And then subsequently, amendment number 2 was then amendment number 2 was done let me back up and just say the Litton crew was hired by Brightview on the 13th, the following day of 24, to ensure that near-term success of the spray fields operation amid sudden and unexpected termination of the contract by Litton. And then on December 16th of 2024, the JPA board approved amendment number 2 to expand scope of the work of Brightview to include an annual cost of operations and maintenance of the spray fields for 12 months. And that would cover us until the end of this year. And so the item before the board tonight, consistent with the JPA's purchasing policy, staff issued a request for proposals back in August of 25. The district received 4 competitive proposals in response based on staff's review and analysis of the final submissions. Staff is recommending accepting the proposal from Brightview Landscape Services Incorporated in the amount of $426,816 for services from January 26th to December 31st, 2026. Before I read the formal recommendation, this proposal does show a 5% decrease in overall cost for services as compared to previous contract amount. And overall, staff has been satisfied with Brightview's services in 25. And resource conservation staff will continue to provide key oversight and direction to Sprayfield staff to maximize operational efficiencies and compliance. So with that, I'd like to read the formal recommendation, which is for the board tonight to accept the proposal from Brightview Landscape Services Incorporated and authorize the administrating agent, general manager to execute an initial one-year agreement in an amount not to exceed $426,816 with 4 one-year renewal options for operations and maintenance of the Rancho Las Virgenes Farm Sprayfields.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Len?
So in general, you're happy with them. What does that mean? Does it mean there are some areas where there's a difference of opinion?
No, apologies if that made you believe. Yeah, no, overall, because they effectively acquired the crew that has manned those fields for collectively for the past 50 years, we've been more than.
Terrific news. That's an interesting piece of information. Maybe I didn't read it. Okay.
Now, if you can apply the reduction of 5% to the pure water plant, that would be good too.
You can talk to our accounting department.
So Black Point was fairly close, a couple percentage points difference here.
Yeah, it's really close.
Was there any value added from that firm? $7,000 difference maybe?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe not disclosed in the report, but you know, through the ranking process, there was a ranking process. So without going into too much detail, they were not as competitive in terms of making themselves get into the top 3. It was very competitive though. So taking nothing away from what they submitted, but just overarchingly, the decision came down to a lot of it honestly had to do with maintaining the existing crew.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Just this contract goes away once we get the pure water project in place. Is that correct?
Let me speak, I'll speak to that. Maybe not necessarily. We are studying the feasibility of repurposing the spray fields. You've heard me talk a little bit about shallow detention ponds that help with the operation of a recycled water system, staying in compliance, not having violations on discharges. That's something that could help us if we repurpose them. And also optimizing the use of the new advanced water purification facility. This is being studied for the next few years. There is a possibility that, well, at least the work that Brightview is doing now, that Lytton has done in the past, that some of that will probably still need to be done. You know, I look at these dollar figures and hopeful that that we could get these down in future years, and we just got to wait and see what comes out of this feasibility study.
Any other comments, questions?
Just one more. I don't mind to belabor the point. Somehow my understanding that spray fields, recycled water, we weren't going to be doing that anymore with pure water. And in a sense we are.
It's a backup. It's a backup to avoid discharge violations if we were to use them as spray fields. The thought right now is it might be better to convert them into detention basins and not spray. Instead, you're flooding the ground, and you could get more storage that way. There could be a lot of benefits to doing it that way. So that's what we're studying right now. But if the AWPF were to go offline or we had some kind of a glitch, it would probably be beneficial to us to have that as a backup. We do have 005. In the event of a major storm, we could get some relief from the regulators to discharge to Malibu Creek. Most likely that's a permit we're working on right now. But having that as a backup probably would be.
Yeah, I get it. It's a backup system. I get it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Craig. We'll move on to item number 7, board comments. Any members of the board have a comment? Okay, I would just like to thank staff for the marvelous job they did on the Pure Beer event that we had last week. It was well attended, and Adrian, could you just give us a few words on your thoughts on how it went, how many people were there?
I would be happy to share some details with you all. So overall, we ended up having 178 RSVPs to the event. We had about 140 people actually show up, so very well attended. A lot of folks from the JPA showed up, which we love to see. We love to have that board participation. Members of both Las Virgenes and Triumpho were there, in addition to other public agencies, partners, stakeholders, members of the community. I will say one of the biggest takeaways from this event was that we were able to create a lot of variety in conversation, meeting people where they were. So whether you were interested in the science and the data of pure water, or the impact to your community, or just becoming familiar with it, or you were coming back because you loved the pure beer events from previous years, which we heard a lot. So big kudos to the staff for their ability to maintain a lot of engagement and positive sentiment with the community for these events. I think the big success here was that we were able to meet people where they are. We had the right folks in place to have the conversations that they wanted to have, no matter what they were. And to me, that was the ultimate goal, was to be able to have these conversations and make sure all the right people were in the room for the community. And so that was my biggest takeaway and the biggest success of the night, in addition to all the fun that I think everybody had.
It was a lot of fun, and I know from having talked to a lot of the people there, this was the first pure water event that a number of people attended. And it's always very gratifying when we can get new people from the community to be attending these events, because that's in part what we're trying to do, is get more people to learn more about the Pure Water Project.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely made a point to stop by a lot of folks' tables, ask them if it was their first event. So there were a number of folks, it was their first pure beer event, and they were really happy to be there. They had no idea, and it was a really enjoyable experience for them.
Good. We're all looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely.
And I will compliment you, Adrian, because I know this is one of your first events that you really had a hand in, and it actually went off very, very smoothly with all the materials and everything there for the people. I did have a couple of people, actually. It's kind of funny, as I was reading the agenda tonight, what is all that spraying on Las Virgenes? And at first I didn't understand what they were talking about, and they actually were asking what were the spray fields doing? And they said, why can't we put it up the mountains and keep the mountains from being on fire? And I said, well, it's something I'd mentioned, but because there are no signs or anything, nobody really knows what the spray fields are doing. And it's just funny they came up tonight, but they were.
So we need an education campaign on the spray field.
I know. That's
Got
why I
it.
brought it up. I know you'll work on it.
Well, I will say I loved being a part of it as my first big event, but really so much of the heavy lifting was Las Virgenes, Triumpho, and Ariano, who did an amazing job helping with the outreach on that.
Thank you. By the way, I do believe that we used to have signs by the spray fields indicating that that was recycled water.
Yeah, we're supposed to have signs. If they're not up, I don't know why. I know they are up. So I think part of the issue, when people are driving 80 miles an hour down Las Virgenes, they don't see the
So
sign.
that's too fast.
Sometimes they start to get worn. We'll take them down for a period until we get new ones. So it's just something we got to stay on top of.
Yeah. Okay. Any other board comments?
Had a great time.
Yeah. Well, I think we all did. It was a great event. Thank you to the staff. We'll move on to item number 8, the administering agent general manager report. Joe?
Thank you. I'll be quick. You are stuck with me tonight because Dave Peterson, along with Andy Kordeski and Jay Lewitt, have been in Sacramento all day. They've been lobbying on some LV matters, not related to the JPA. So if you're wondering where they are. And then Adrian talked about the Pure Beer event, which I also attended and thought it was very well done. Seemed like everyone was having a good time, a lot of great information being shared. Moving on, we have a special Public Finance Authority meeting scheduled for December 8th as part of the JPA meeting. That's also on the 8th at the same time. At that meeting, we'll be presenting some special financing that this is that interim or short-term financing that we talked about a little bit earlier for the pure water facility. Part of it is, there is the WIFIA is taking a while to close. We're still very optimistic that it'll close soon. But even with that out of the picture, the strategy has always been to try to capture a lower interest rate as much as possible on WIFIA. So it's a tactic. The delay could actually be a good thing. So we'll be presenting that to the board at that meeting. So just a heads up on that. Also, the next JPA meeting, just so you really have it on your radar, we will, as Oliver mentioned, be presenting the guaranteed maximum price that we've negotiated. This will be the basically best and final price that we get from Walsh. Oliver and the Jacobs team been spending a lot of time, along with some other staff, myself included, looking at the GMP. There's thousands of line items, lots and lots of competitive bids from subcontractors. We feel pretty good about where things are landing. Waiting to get some cost estimates for some other work that's not directly related to Walsh right now for this GMP. We're trying to get a better handle on those costs so that we see where we fall under the overall $466 million program budget, not the Walsh GMP 1-2 budget. So we're very hopeful that we'll have a dollar figure to share with you that will also come along with asking the board to give the general manager authority, the administrating agent authority to execute a contract with Walsh for that GMP amount. And that would cover us for the final design, 60 to 100%, as well as construction, some of that construction taking place concurrently with the final design on the project. So look forward to that. It is time sensitive, so there could be some cost repercussions if we delay things. So I would say if any board members have questions about the GMP or any of the complexities, maybe give myself or Oliver a call if you have any questions that we could help answer in preparation for that meeting. You're welcome to do so. And then talk a little bit about the creek flows. Malibu Creek, we're seeing about 6.5 CFS, that's cubic feet per second. So 6.5 basketballs per second worth of water going down the creek. So we're above the amount that would trigger the augmentation requirement, which is good for this time of year. I'll also mention that the big storm that we had, I guess it's been a couple of weeks now, where we had well over an inch of rain. Tapia performed quite well. And so we're glad to see, not having any violations for exceedances on that, which is positive. And then we do have the creek discharge prohibition period ending on November 15th. So we'll be able to start discharging to Malibu Creek again. Of course, this is something we're allowed to do until November 15th of 2030, when we have the time order. And this, of course, that's the real drop dead deadline to have the advanced water purification facility operational, online, and working. So we don't have to rely on the creek anymore. I think that concludes my report.
Any questions?
Yes.
Lynn?
So is it possible for us as a board to request a design change outside of the GMP? So if you go ahead with what you're going ahead with, we can say we have another issue to discuss. Is that possible? Is it practical? And is it a solution to this issue of keeping the train rolling?
Yeah, it is a possibility to do that. The contract we would be entering into would be based on the current architectural design. So when we start to talk about making owner-initiated changes, after, let's just assume on December 8th, if we start to make changes that are initiated by us after that, it would basically cause for a change order, if it impacts cost or schedule. I could tell you, based on what I know about other similar sized projects, advanced treatment projects, and just some of the financials on this project, that every month of delay, so if there is a delay, it equates to about $1 million. So that there's a lot of emphasis in moving this project forward just so that we avoid those delays.
Any other questions?
Yes, so are you going to present better renderings at the next meeting?
We don't plan on it.
Pardon me?
We don't plan on it.
You
We
don't
don't have the budget. The
even
architect's
to
exhausted.
present renderings which show the building as honestly as it stands now,
Correct.
unless I asked the, well,
Basically,
is my window gone as a board member?
basically, staff is just operating under the board accepted the architectural design back on January 6th. So if the board chooses to reopen it, of course, staff will
Respond.
respond.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Joe. Are there any future agenda items that the board would like to present?
I have one. I'd like to see a presentation of the building as honestly as it could be shown for us to evaluate.
I'm gonna need more clear direction for staff.
Well, let me ask a question, Len.
Sure.
Your concern is that the rendering that we're seeing does not show the building to be as wide in
High, that's
visual
why it's
or
enormous.
wide or high visually as you think it might
Yes.
be. And what difference would that make?
Huge. You'll be dwarfed by the building. It's not the Empire State Building, but it's a big building. And the distance back from the road doesn't do, it's up 4 feet. So I said, it's gonna be 30, the building itself is 30 feet tall. So you got 4 more feet, you got 35 feet and you're back, what? 50 feet? It's gonna be huge.
Right, but it's not gonna be taller,
We're gonna be very unhappy with it, Leon.
but it's not gonna be taller than other buildings in the area.
There's no, the only other building that's close is down the street,
There's office buildings.
yeah, I know. but
That are taller than what the
It's about.
AWP.
Yeah, but it's also for the old, that old building, there was the Hilton building is no longer the Hilton building, but it's also further back from the street. This is closer.
Okay. So you're
I'm
saying
no,
from a
no.
visual, you're saying from a visual standpoint, it's not gonna look good.
You got it.
So,
What I'm asking for is to make renderings which show the building as honestly as possible, because at the present time, I do not, so that means if your field of view is 170 degrees with the camera that shows it there, and you're at 6 feet above the sidewalk and you're back from the building, it'll show you what you'll see, what's in your cone of vision. And it'll show you the fact that the building is quite large and it's bland. You have a big box of stucco. That's my concern. I'm trying to present it as honestly as possible. Put a camera there. That's what I want, Joe. I want an honest picture. That's not an honest picture of what you'll see when you're standing on the sidewalk or you're driving by, because you're even lower physically. I'm a 6 foot tall man, so my eyeballs are about 5'6". Woman at 5'6" tall, her eyeballs are 5 feet. About 5 feet 1 inch, something with that area. That's the honest presentation. That's a dishonest presentation, and I dislike it.
There's,
So I'm asking for a rendering it's a very simple matter. You have a 3D model, you put the camera right there and you show it. And that's the reason they haven't done it, because it doesn't show the building honestly.
but we're not going to be able to reduce the height of the structure.
No, we can't, but we can do something to the surface. That's all I want to do.
So you just want to see a better drawing of the.
Yeah, I want to see a better drawing. I want to be able to talk about my idea of a metaphor. So somebody's got a better one, come out with it. I know we've talked about in the past, or I've thought about it, putting a mural on the side of the building. Might not be a bad idea, but right now which is peanuts. I'm not
Okay.
asking for changing the whole building. I'm asking for an idea, a metaphor.
Well, and I think what I've asked from you is give us an example of what
Yeah,
that
I
metaphor would
understand.
be.
That's my responsibility. I actually started fooling around with it today. And I looked, I can't work with the presentation because it's too far away from the building. I was gonna do it, amongst other things I got going on.
So the best I could suggest, to move on from this is, we could ask the architect, to get another rendering. It'll be an adder, okay? I don't know how much it'll cost. And we'll schedule all that stuff, but in order for him to do anything, we're gonna need some kind of sketch or something, because I think staff is having a hard time understanding exactly what Director Poland's looking for. So I think some kind of a sketch could be of
Fine.
some value. So the best we could probably do is probably the best we could.
But the accurate presentation has not been shown to this board, ever. I've been grumbling about it, and I've decided to go public with it instead of trying to work behind the scenes. That's what I want, an accurate presentation.
Okay, can you get something to Oliver?
Sure.
In terms of your suggestion?
Yes.
Of a metaphor?
I have some.
I'll also add, we probably can't come to the board on the 8th with this because we are spending all of our time on the GMP. So it's probably not gonna, if we come back to the board, it probably won't be till January.
Well, my understanding is that whatever we might do is not something that is going to structurally affect the building itself, and is something that could be an add-on, an owner add-on.
That's what I'm communicating.
Okay, that is fine. Then if you would get us,
Terrific. Thank you. Good work.
thank you.
Leon, can I make a comment? This issue has been discussed thoroughly in the
Yes.
past. Before I support anything that's going to add more cost and time for staff and architects, why don't we take a poll of the board members who would support this and find out if you don't have a majority that supports it, we're done with it and we move on, okay?
That isn't the way we do future agenda items, and I'm concerned that if you do that poll, it will look like we're taking action on an item that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Well, I think this is a waste of staff.
I know you do. I figured you would.
Okay. Len, if you would, get
Okay.
your ideas to Oliver.
Yes.
And we'll see what staff
I'll
can
have-
do from there.
Is that okay, Keith? If I make some sketches and I send it to the staff, okay.
Okay. That is fine. Then we'll move on. Item number 10, public comments. Nancy, are there any comment cards?
There are none.
Okay, with that in mind, it is now 6:30 and the meeting is